Well, hello there, and welcome back to the Business of Becoming podcast. I'm your host, Lori Kennedy, and this is episode number 57. Today, I'm trying something a little bit different. Today, you are going to hear an interview with me as the guest. Omar Cumberbatch, who, aside from having the best name, and who is coincidentally part of the Wellness Business Academy, has an amazing podcast called The Health Coach Academy and interviewed me a while ago. I thought the interview was great, and I asked Omar if I could share it on my Business of Becoming podcast with you guys, and luckily he said yes. We talk about many things in this interview: how I got my start, how I take imperfect action and what it really means to me, how situations can show us where and how we need to grow, my gifts and what I think about investing in programs, and what happens when I don't invest. We're turning the tables today, my friends. All of the things that Omar and I chat about can be found over on the show notes at thewbh.com/57. So without further ado, let's get this episode started.
Hey, Lori, welcome to the show. How are you today?
I'm wonderful. Thanks for having me.
Oh, it's my pleasure. I've been following your work for quite some time, and I'm actually very, very happy to say that I finally found something that you done that I said I had to join. And that's basically the Wellness Business Academy. So I just wanted to let you know off the top that appreciate what you do, and I'm really excited about this course that you have.
Amazing. Thank you.
I also wanted to just let the audience know a little bit about you, and tell us a little bit about yourself, your business model, and why is it so successful, and how did you really come to get this model so on point?
Sure. So my journey really started, I guess in 1999. I've never had like a proper corporate job. I've always been in health and wellness. I started off as a personal trainer, and I moved into holistic nutrition. And when I was in practice with my nutrition business, I realized very quickly that I handcuffed myself, basically. So there's only a certain number of service hours in the day, and at that point, there was only so much I could or knew to charge per hour, and so I really handcuffed my own growth, and I didn't like that, and so I had to figure out another way to run my business so that I didn't basically have a glass ceiling over my head. And that was really a group program. And that's how it all started, really, in my own private practice. When I wasn't happy with the results, I wasn't happy trading dollars for hours. And I realized two things. One, I realized that everybody wants to feel a part of a community. The trending word now is tribe, but really it's this community of like-minded and like-hearted people. And two, that I could be of service. I could transform lives in a group setting. I did not have to do it on a one-to-one basis. And so that's really where it started back in 2009. And it's just grown from there. And the reason that I know that it works is because, well, one, we've been doing it for so long and we now have hundreds of people doing it as well. But two, because of those two simple factors. Everyone wants to connect. Everyone wants to feel validated. Everyone wants to be understood. And everyone wants to move away from pain. They don't care if it's in a one-to-one setting or in a group setting. I mean, some people I'm sure do, but the majority of people don't. If they have a solution that moves them out of pain, they're happy. And so that's why this model particularly works, because it melds those two worlds together, one being community and two being a solution.
Mm-hmm. Now, one of the things that I did notice about a lot of your programs is that you really create programs that focus on content creation as well. How did you naturally go into that? What was the reasoning behind that?
Because I felt like even though there is an abundance of free information out in the world, what people are really looking for is
are the steps. They're looking to be told what to do. And I think in my world, especially working with alternative health practitioners and trainers and life coaches, there is this disconnect in our own capability, in our own skill set, because we all come from a very theoretical, clinical background of, assess and prescribe, even though we aren't allowed to say prescribe, but you know what I mean? Like assess and recommend would be, I guess, a better word. But there's no, and that's it. And that used to work, and that's cool, but not anymore, because now people want steps. Now people they don't want to have to think. They don't want to have to figure it out for themselves. And so the more helpful instruction we can provide, and where some of it's education, but most of it is geared toward action-oriented content, the more compliant clients will be, and the better results they'll get. And therefore, the more people they'll refer, and the faster your business grows.
And now that's just basically like business 101. Was that something that was just natural to you, or do you have to do a little bit of investing into figuring out that platform for yourself?
Well, I think it's just paying attention, right? Like when I first started, I had no clue what I was doing. And so I did what I was taught. I educated a lot. And that's number one, that's boring. And number two, that doesn't build relationship with people, because no one wants to be talked at like a professor, right?
Right.
And that's what most of us are doing. We're teaching in a way that's very disconnected. And so over time, I just started to pay attention to what my clients were saying to me, the feedback as to why they couldn't do what I was asking them to do, what would be helpful. Like one of the most important questions I still ask my clients now is, how can I help you get better, faster, and deeper results? The clients know, like they know. And if you ask the question, they'll tell you. Then you just implement what they said. And we think, and we assume wrongly so, that they will tell us what they need to succeed without us asking. And that's just not the case. Number one, they don't feel safe to do so. And number two, until it's given to them in the form of a question, they probably don't think about what they need to succeed. All they think about is why they're not succeeding, and they beat themselves up about it. Mm-hmm. Right? And so it's me providing all of this content that toggles really between education, action, and rapport building, nurturing, whatever you want to call it, really just came from paying attention, not worrying so much about, do they like me? Is this about me? Am I making money? Am I doing the right thing? Am I? It's more putting myself aside and really listening and paying attention.
And you found that like the group setting was easy to navigate, just being able to pay attention to so many people, or is that just natural to you, or some people are just better at that in a one-on-one basis?
You know what? I think it comes naturally to me. One, because I'm just a natural leader, and two, because I was a camp counselor for a really long time. And I've never actually thought about it that way, because I've never been asked this question. So it's a really good question. I appreciate you asking it.
Oh, thank you.
But I was, as you were asking, I was like, because I see it. And I mean, at this point we have thousands of students. And so I see their struggle in navigating the group. And I think I was a camp counselor from the time I was 14 until I was 18.
Oh, wow.
And dealing with all these different kids and their parents. And I was a gymnastics coach. And so I lived and breathed a group setting for a very long time. And then I was a trainer and I taught classes. So I've always been in a group setting. So I think for me, it does come more naturally to others. But also I practiced facilitating. Like a lot of people have issues, facilitating. They don't want to take that leadership role. And my degree in university was called Applied Human Sciences, which really was leadership. It was leadership. It was psychology. It was all of that, which is interesting now that I do what I do. But I practiced facilitating. I read about facilitating. I learned how to be a better facilitator versus going and studying more about weight loss or more about body mechanics or whatever, because I knew enough to get them results. What I didn't know is how to be a better leader, is how to put that how to coach. And so that's what I studied. But honestly, in terms of a group setting, you just learn by doing. You pay attention. You pay attention. Like even now in the academy, as an example, we just added in 232 new people in a very short period of time. So the group now is over about 900 people. Wow. Well, that obviously brings a lot of different challenges than when I started out with this group in 2014 and we had 68 people. Right. And so there's no way that I could have predicted what we would need at 900 people until we had it. And so I'm also someone like that. I'm okay with that. Like I can surrender to that. It doesn't stress me out. We're only now recognizing how we need to pivot and the supports that we need to add into the group because the situation has presented itself. So I think there's something to be said, and this is like a huge catchphrase of mine, by taking imperfect action and just saying, okay, I know this is not necessarily my skill set at the moment, but until you go through it, that situation or that circumstance will show you how you need to grow and how you need to get better and the skills and the supports that you need to acquire.
Oh, no, totally. And, you learn and grow, that's basically what it is. These are, like I always say, these are good problems to have. So, it's a great thing. Let me just ask you, since we're down that road a little bit, what other natural gifts did you have that were just something that complemented your business that you noticed over the years?
I don't know if it's ignorance or being naive, or I am fear of failure is not something that enters my mind. And sometimes that actually gets me in trouble in the sense of if I want to do something, I'll just do it. And it could, and sometimes, and I would say most of the time, it's a lesson that I needed to learn in restraint and discernment because it was a mistake. But I don't have, and I see this in my community a lot, I don't have fears of embarrassing myself. I don't have fears that people are going to think I'm an idiot. I don't have a fear that I'm going to send something out and nobody's going to buy it. Those things don't affect me on a level that I see that they affect most people. I don't tend to take anything too seriously, and I don't put I don't deem anything successful or anything a failure because I'm still in my journey. And so I don't, if we did something as an example and it didn't work out, I wouldn't deem that as a failure. It's just, for me, everything is progress and everything is a test. So naturally having that don't sweat the small stuff attitude and mindset, and naturally having this deep level of resiliency that I foster all the time in terms of, okay, what is this supposed to teach me? How can I learn from this? How can I grow and just do better next time? I really believe that is something, that is one of my gifts. I know this now because I've worked with thousands of people, specifically women, who this is not a natural thing that they feel. It's fostered over time for sure. But for me, it's never been an issue. It's not that I don't care. It doesn't factor into my emotional rainbow of things that bug me.
No, listen, that's a totally, I want to say it's unique because I think a lot of people have it, not including myself, where we expect certain successes, and it's a beautiful attitude to have. That it's a rarity, and I know that you're beginning to see it now. I just want to maybe dig a little bit deeper, because again, I know this can relate to most of my audience. Like, is it something that, again, I don't like to say it's born with, but I try to get to the bottom of it. It's like, how can we identify it and like kind of get past that into people who don't have it naturally?
Right. So, and that's also a really good question too, because that's something that I prompt my people with as well. When they say to me things like, I feel like a fraud, or I don't feel confident in doing this, or I'm not ready yet, or what if this doesn't work? And I would say, well, sit with that feeling, like, especially the one about being a fraud or not being capable enough, like, sit with those feelings and really ask out loud, where is this coming from? Right? Because how come one person feels like that and another doesn't? Right? So where is it coming from? And I'll give you an example. There was one time where I felt like a fraud, and it was because I was teaching business, and the back end, if you look like under my hood, like the back end of my business, we were very disorganized. I did not have my stuff together. I was embarrassed. I was embarrassed by, looking under the hood, like, like on the outside, and you walk into someone's house and they're like a hoarder, right?
Yeah.
Like, oh God, and you would have never, like, it's embarrassing. And so in that way, I'm teaching people to like be organized, and I'm teaching people to better use their time, and I'm teaching people all of these things. And I didn't feel like I had any right to teach that, because I was embarrassed about the way that I was doing things in my own business. And so that triggered me feeling like a fraud. And so I really had to look at that and go, okay, in order for me to not feel like a fraud, what do I need to do? Mm-hmm. Right? What needs to happen in my world for me to not feel like a fraud? And so I spent a year working on the processes in my business, right? Where we cleaned up a lot of things. And look, that's natural. When you're moving so fast, like, you can't keep organized, right? Like, you're just creating and implementing. It's very normal for everything to be like all over the place. However, at some point you got to go clean it up and organize it and process it out, or you can't grow. And that was what I needed to do. And so once I did that, that feeling of behaving like a fraud was gone, because I solved the problem for myself. And so for those of you that feel that way, whether it's a fraud or you're embarrassed, or another one I hear all the time is like, I don't look the part or whatever, that's really something, an insecurity that's coming from within. And in order to get rid of that, you actually have to deal with the problem, right? You actually have to sit still and go, okay, why do I feel like a fraud? What skills am I lacking? What internal scripts do I have to work through in terms of like, like scripts from childhood or mindsets or whatever it is, right? Like, all of the only reason why people feel the way that they feel, it's from within. It's not this external thing. Those are just triggers. And so in order for you to really become the person you want to be and to work through those feelings, you have to acknowledge them, right? You can't fix what you don't acknowledge. And a lot of people don't acknowledge it, and they use those words like a fraud or, I'm a tech phobe or whatever the case may be, as an excuse or a cover up to really deal with what's really going on. That's the only thing that's holding them back.
You sound like you've done a lot of that type of work. Did you get a lot of coaching? Did you do a lot of I don't want to say necessarily psychologist or that world as well, but did you do a lot of investing in yourself as far as getting those things cleaned up as well?
Oh, 100%. I mean, being an entrepreneur, regardless of your professional title, if what you're doing is creating a business that didn't exist yesterday and creating solutions for people that didn't exist, or content, right? You are an entrepreneur. You are creating something that didn't exist before. And basically shoves a big fat mirror in your face of all the things that are messed up about you. And we all have it, right? There's no one, and the more you dive into this world, you know, the more mirrors are just being shown to you, the more reflective your own stuff is. And I'm a huge advocate of therapy. I have a therapist that I see regularly. I have energy workers that I work with regularly. I have a mastermind that I meet with weekly. I've invested, I don't even know how many six figures at this point. At least over $100,000 for sure in my own development. At least probably close to 2 at this point over the last 10 years, I would say. It is absolutely essential. I mean, I think we all thrive off of accountability, right? It's easy to say, okay, I'll do this on my own. But for me, I really like to move fast. And when I feel something internally, like a block, or I feel ill-equipped or vulnerable or whatever, I know myself well enough now to be like, okay, I need to process through this or I can't move forward. And when I can't move forward, I'm doing everybody in my world a massive injustice. My team, my kids, my clients, because by me refusing to work on myself, I'm holding everyone back. And that's pretty selfish. That's actually like that. If we talk about like the real word of like, that's selfish, right?
Yeah.
By me refusing to not dive deeper, even though it's painful, even though it's the hardest work in the world, I'm holding everybody back. I'm holding my clients back from growing because I'm not doing the work. And one of my favorite quotes is, be the client you want to have. And so if I'm asking people to grow and empower themselves and invest in mentorship, and I'm not willing to do that for myself, that really makes me a hypocrite and a fraud. Like that's you know what I mean? And so, yes, I'm a huge advocate of like, you go acquire all the people you need, you know, in your world to help you move through whatever's holding you back. Because you can learn all the skills like marketing and sales and this and that and the other thing. But if there's still those voices or those feelings or whatever, you're never going to be able to get to the level you want to get to.
No, absolutely. You definitely need an A team around you. You know, you need a little bit of different variety of things that move you forward. So I totally agree with that. And the reason I asked that question is a lot to my guests is because people who are as successful and inspirational as you are, it's good to hear that you get the work done as well. You know, it's you walk the walk and talk the talk. So it's a good thing to put out there.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I just had this past week, because we're getting to a next level in my business. I had a 2-hour session with my actual therapist, and then I had a 45-minute session with my energy worker therapist person. So that's like almost 2 hours and 45 minutes of literally diving deep into my own stuff. Right. And I do that on like a monthly basis. I think about it a lot more than that, but it's a recurring thing in my life because I just don't want to be held back.
No, that's awesome. And I think that's a perfect segue because, you know, like I said, I've been following you to a degree for a long time. And I've noticed that you just have again, you mentioned the word resilience, and also like, you know, you're a single mother with 2 children. You just don't have any excuses and you don't let anything hold you back. Like, talk about that a little bit. Like, how do you still manage to exceed and accomplish all of your goals?
I think it's just because I've gotten to a point where I know that the only thing that's holding me back is me. It's not my skills, because those can be acquired and learned. And I've had to, I think honestly, it came down to, number one, making a decision. In May of 2011, I sat with my 2 kids. At that time, they were super little. And I really, truly made a decision, which I now call my no plan B commitment. I really did make a decision to say, and I threw it out to the universe, whatever you believe. I believe in God and the universe. And I threw it out and I just said, look, I am all in. I'm all in. I'm willing to do whatever I need to do to transform my life. I want to be financially independent. I want to be able to come and go as I please. And I want to impact the world in a way that would like blow my mind. And I didn't know what that meant at the time. Like, you know, I remember sitting in my bed, my king size bed with my 2 little kids and thinking, okay, bring me the people that can help me. And I just remember asking, and I really have since then made that commitment of growth, of development, of impact. And I know these are like trending words and of service, but it's true. And sometimes that means sacrificing certain things. And I am very okay with that because I made that commitment to myself, and it's not external. It's for my own well-being so that I know that I'm living up to my own purpose and my own capabilities. And the more I do this work, the more I'm shown that I'm more than capable, more than what I ever thought I could be. And I think it's just part of my mindset of, okay, these are circumstances that are here to teach me things. And sometimes they're really, really dark and really, really painful. And sometimes they last a really, really long time. And I think that's, you know, I can be having like the best time in my business and my personal life is falling apart. Right. And that's just the way it is. And I think that I don't, you know, it's a hard thing to sort of describe. Like, I never once was like the victim. Of course I was like, why is this happening? And like, this sucks. And I wish it wasn't happening, but it is. So let's just jump on the bandwagon and deal with this in the best way possible. And that doesn't mean that it hasn't been uber hard, you know, and that doesn't mean that I could take a rest from the lessons, you know, like the last 2 years of my life have been, you know, a challenge to say the least. And I remember at the beginning of, well, at the end of 2017, I literally wrote a letter to the universe and I was like, I'm good for a while. Like, I'm good. I don't, you know, like if you could just put a pause on the lessons for a while, you know, like I'm really good. Like the last 5 years of my life, specifically the last 2, have been, again, like the most exciting in terms of business growth and the hardest in my personal life. And so I've been dealing with both of those things at the same time. And I just asked for a pause. I'm like, if you could just, you know, like let me enjoy it. Just give me a pause. I'm not asking for a pass, just pause. Pause on the lessons for a while. Because I need a breather, man. I need a breather. So, because it's hard, right? It's hard. And so, and that's just life. Like, that's just the way it is. And I think the people that succeed in life and are really able to find joy and happiness and all of that good stuff cultivate that kind of mindset of like, okay, it's really light over here on this one side and it's really dark over here on this other side. And so how am I going to handle this to the best of my ability?
I think it's amazing that you're able to do that because, I mean, even in just the workforce, if you have a 9-to-5 job, some people can't separate their life, you know, their personal life with their actual job. How were you able to do it like that? It was, again, like, it's just, were you just like using that positive energy from your business to kind of just bring it into your personal life as well? And it kind of that created the balance. You know, I'm just curious how that happened.
You know, I think this might sound really like silly and really simple, but I made a commitment to like become the person I wanted. Right? I made a commitment. I decide. And it was interesting. This morning, I just actually, before we recorded this, I went for a walk and I was listening to an audiobook by Brendan Burchard about his high performance habits. And he said something that said, most people in the world settle for the feelings that land on them versus decide how they want to feel.
Hmm.
And I think that just echoes what you just asked me. I don't settle for anything, like anything. And it's a decision, and it's awareness that I don't think what I like to call like the muggles of the world realize that they're capable of. So like, I know no matter what, it could be the darkest of the darkest of the darkest. I decide how I feel. I decide how I respond. I decide how it turns out. I decide. Mm-hmm. That's my reality. That's my perception of it. And so I could either unconsciously just move through life and take it as it is, or I can say, okay, like I'm struggling here. I need help. And there was a lot, I have a lot of help, like a lot. My parents are super involved in my life. They help me with my kids. I have a really good group of like mom friends. I have a village that like live on my street. My next door neighbor, like I can call in at any time. Mm-hmm. My extended family is super helpful. I have a lot, like I have literally like, I have my therapist, I have my energy worker. Like I have a lot of help. This isn't just like me, myself, and I. And I think when you're going through something specifically, you need your village. Like you need those supports, and it's not always easy for me to ask for help, but I've learned over time, like if I don't ask for help, I suffer and everyone else around me suffers. So why? Like I'm not here to be a martyr. I'm here to get, I'm here to get stuff done. I'm here to have an impact, and I can't do that like by pretending it's me, myself, and I, because it's not. Mm-hmm. And how did I separate it? I just made a decision. Honestly, it sounds so simple, but it's true. Like I just made a decision, and I involved the people that I needed to involve, in the sense of being like, okay, this is what's going on. My team was obviously involved in that regard. And I just said, look, I'm struggling right now. Like I need you to step up. I can't do this right now. I can't think. I can't, when I was like really in the thick of it, I was like, mm-hmm. I can't even be in my own skin. You need to step up and handle all of this stuff. And I really did. And I released control. And sometimes you got to do that, like in terms of your work and your life and your personal life. Like if you are in the thick of it, like if you are in the weeds and you just can't cope, there's nothing wrong with that. But just don't pretend like you are coping when you can't. For those moments, you need to release, you need to ask for help, you need to walk away, you need to do the things that you need to do for yourself. And there were definitely times like in early 2016 where like I would say January, February, March. Actually, it's interesting, at the time of this recording, it's the 2-year anniversary of when I moved into my house. But early January, February, March, and I would say April of 2016, like I needed a lot of help, and I asked for it and I got it. And that allowed me to just do what I needed to do to like deal with my situation and deal with my kids and like just really deal with myself.
Oh, that's a really good answer. And thank you so much for sharing, because I know that, again, a lot of people do that. They're very reactionary to like events instead of, like you said, taking that step back and making a decision. So excellent answer. I wanted to also kind of touch on something that you mentioned earlier, and you just said one word, and so I have to ask it. You talked about, you mentioned the word sacrifice. What have you sacrificed to get to where you are today?
It's an interesting word, because I don't love the word balance, and mm-hmm. sacrifice implies that it wasn't like a choice. But for me, it's always a choice. I've chosen, let's use the word chosen. I've mm-hmm. chosen to work when I could have been with my kids. I've chosen to work when I could have been out socializing. I've chosen to work when I could have been doing things for myself. I've chosen to work when I could have been with my family. And those things I have sacrificed in a positive way, because I feel very much committed to this work. And I am obsessed with my work. It is an extension of my being. Mm-hmm. And so for me, sacrificing time with other people in order to advance my company, in order to do the work that I was meant to do in this world, didn't ever feel, shouldn't say ever. There were definitely times, specifically with my kids, where I felt guilty, because the societal norm is like, you should do this as a mother. You should be baking cookies. You should be doing arts and crafts. You should be doing laundry. You should have a clean house. You should have all of these things specific to, at that time, being a wife and being a mother. And so because I didn't want to do those things, because I, honest to God, in certain circumstances, wanted to work over playing with my kids, as an example, if I'm being quite honest, I felt shame around that. And so to me, sacrificing time with them in order to build the community and the company that I've built was a very conscious decision. And it still is, to be honest. There are times where I can't do the things, I shouldn't say I can't, I choose not to, because I want to work. And that means, on the flip side, when I am with them, I'm with them. And I'm not having, my brain running a mile a minute and trying to be with them and answer emails and be with them and be on Facebook and be with them and do all of those things. Like, when I'm with them, because when I'm not with them, I'm working. Or I'm doing something else for myself. And I do have to say that is less now than it was at the beginning. Like, at the beginning, when I was building my company, I worked a lot more than I do now, because now I'm able to afford more team members. I'm able to have a lot more time freedom, 5 years later, than I was, let's say, in 2012 to 2015.
No, yeah, absolutely.
Right. And so I think that, it's like in defense of the hustle, right? Where we see all of these people who are now having massive success being like, you don't have to hustle. And I'm like, yeah, but go back to your 1, 2, and 3.
Yeah.
Right. And I think that, hustle means something different for everyone. But I do think that there's, especially when you're building something from nothing and you have goals, there is this element of obsession that you should have. There is this element of like fierce and focused dedication, where you're not going out partying until 2:00 in the morning and drinking with your friends at the bar, because you need to wake up tomorrow and grind and like create content and film videos and answer emails and do all of those things until you have the resources to hire people to help you.
Yeah, then you could go back and hang out and drink with your friends. That's the
right.
That's my goal. So, but no, in all seriousness, it is required. I mean, it's just one of these things that a lot of people have to deal with. I mean, there's just no way that you can build something that you've built with. It's just not an overnight thing. So it's good to hear these kinds of things. And I also like the fact that you also were brutally honest with the fact that I'm not basically sticking with society's viewpoint of what I should do. And you know what? And you're laughing at that now, which is good.
Yeah. I mean, like what I've learned over the years is there's an opportunity cost, right? There's an opportunity cost for me to bake the cookies versus buy the cookies. And yes, it's healthier to bake the cookies and whatever. And I get that. And there's like an argument to be made for that. And I understand, but that's not what I'm talking about. Right? The opportunity cost of me having to go to the store and buy the food and bake the cookies and clean up, right? Where like, who cares really? Like, so the other moms don't judge me. Like, do I actually care? No, I don't. Because those 3 hours that it would have taken me, or those 2 hours that it would have taken me to bake the cookies, I just banged out an amazing blog post that's now going to help thousands of people. That's more important to me. So there's an opportunity cost. What you choose to spend your time on matters. And if you're choosing to spend your time on things so that you keep up with the Joneses, or are behaving in a way that like is martyr, like a martyr, like, oh yeah, I had such a busy day. I cleaned the house and I went grocery shopping and I cooked and I did the laundry and I put it away and I've been, awake for 18 hours. Like, who cares? No one's going to give you a gold star for that.
Right,
no one, right? No one cares. No one cares. No one's giving you a gold star.
Yeah.
So I learned that very early on. It's like there's an opportunity cost for where I spend my time. And also, too, one of the things that I did with my kids very early on is I created boundaries for them. They understand that my work is very important to me. I show them the impact that we're having. I show them all of the faces in the academy and all of the welcome videos, and they get excited and they come to my live event and they go up on the stage and they see and they say, "Mommy, are all these people here for you?" And I said, "Well, no, they're here for themselves, but kind of, yeah, they're here for me to see me and to meet me." And so they understand the impact that I'm having, that we as a family are having. And I explain to them, like, when you allow me to, do work for an hour because I have to get this done or whatever, you're helping me change these people's lives. And so I've enrolled them into the vision, and they understand when I say to them, I need 30 minutes, like they get it. And then we go play Monopoly for 2 hours, right? It's not like, so it's that balance, it's those boundaries, and it's the decision of being like, okay, this is my norm. Now, might not be your norm, might not be someone else's norm, but this is our norm. And this is how, I started this when my son was 3 months old. They don't know any different. Right. And I sort of compare it to, like, what if I was a surgeon? Like, I'd be coming and going at all hours of the night. I would have to miss things, I luckily don't have to miss things. I can choose to rearrange my schedule because I'm the boss, and that's amazing.
Yeah.
But it's just choices, and it's boundaries, and it's intention.
No, totally. Yeah, I love that answer as well. I just want to wrap up the show a little bit. I really love the content that, in the conversation that we've had so far, but I know that time is, speeding along. I can't believe how long we've been on the call already. I wanted to ask you, what do you feel is like the future of, we're health coaches here. So what do you think is health coaching's future? Like, do you see it going in a specific direction? And, maybe give us a tip how we could get ahead of that curve?
Oh, 100%. I see it being a support to the allopathic medical community. I see health coaching and alternative, specifically online coaching, health coaching, alternative medicine as like a dominant leader in prevention. Specifically online, I see health coaching being massive. I mean, it already is massive, but I'll take it one step deeper. I see the health coaches that will be successful understand that it's a business, and understand that at the core of that business is community and service, and really focuses on building community and doing it to be of service first. And when you do that, the money follows. But I believe that the opportunities are so abundant and so endless, specifically in the online space. And I'm honestly so excited for this profession. I love this profession. I feel like we as health coaches and alternative health professionals truly have the impact to transform health. And I think sometimes we get so caught up in the doing and our own stuff that we forget that.
Yeah.
But honestly, I couldn't be more excited for where this profession is going. And I'm doubling down on being of service and building the community and providing trainings. And I strongly agree that all of you listening, double down on just putting good stuff out into the world and being of service.
Totally. Lori, thank you so much. Can you give us all your information so that we keep in touch with you, your social media handles, your website and all that? Thanks.
So the best place to hang out with me would be on Instagram, and you can come follow me at Lori Kennedy Inc. It's Lori, Lori, and then Kennedy spelled like the Kennedys, and INC. And then also you can go to thewellnessbusinesshub.com. That's our website. You can search on Facebook for our free Facebook group. It's Take Your Health Practice Online. And come say hi. Tell me you heard the podcast interview, and we can be friends online.
That sounds great. Lori, thank you so much for being on my show. It was greatly appreciated, and you have a great day.
Thanks, you too. Thanks.